All right. Well, how's everyone doing today? Feeling good? A little chilly here. A little chilly here in New York. Who's cold? I'm from Florida, so I had brought no coat. I actually had to buy socks, but these are Halloween socks in celebration of Party City.
Thank you.
So an honor, but thank you for joining us today. It's a timely, we're entering the holiday season, so even more relevance with Party City. But
yes.
As we get started, maybe you just want to tell us about your journey, like how, leading marketing at one of the top iconic retailers in the country. How did you get there?
Well, I'm in the third decade of my career. The first decade was spent as a creative. I come out of the creative business. I was a creative director in mass media, and so I was making TV commercials. And it goes back a ways in the car business, actually, automobile business. And then I moved into brand strategy on the agency side, and then I got picked up by one of my clients, which was Kroger. That was my first corporate job, shock to the system. Going from an agency to a corporation. And it really focused the balance of my career up until now on thinking about how to untangle insights to action in retail environments in a way that you can grow the business. And so that's how I got to Party City. And of course, Party City is in the memory making business. Couldn't possibly be more emotive. And so it's a kind of a passion purpose project for me. That I'm in the midst of helping people make their memories and create more joy. So it's an easy brand to love, I'll just say it that way.
I bet everyone loves when you get to talk, having a friend at Party City.
Yeah, who doesn't like getting balloons?
Everyone loves it. And talking about working at some iconic retailers, you've been with Kroger, Walgreens, Vitamin Shop. What would you say is what's your attraction in retail? It seems like you've got this expertise, and a lot of people look at retail and they're like, oh my goodness. So what was your attraction?
Well, I do not like to keep the buses running on time, so I'm a transformationist. Both people, brands, systems, process, it doesn't matter. I like to invent what doesn't exist. And of course, retail is in constant transformation, so I'm attracted to that. It moves fast to... Oh,
hold it higher.
Closer.
Sorry about that. Woo! Thought I had a loud voice already. Yes, and so I'm very attracted to things that have an upside you can't see. And in bringing teams together to help galvanize them to actually realize it, and I find it very exciting. So
I love that. Yeah. Recognize the upside that others don't see. That's a pretty neat encapsulation of a lot of marketing, I think. That's a soundbite right there. Yeah. So can you tell, just for people who may not be aware of Party City, just give us an overview of the company, the footprint, the employees, just a little bit of grounding and a bit about your journey there. What's your charge once you're there?
Mandate. So many of you may not know that Party City is actually part of PCHI. PCHI is an umbrella, I'll call it like a portfolio company. And so we design, manufacture, and distribute products to over 250 retailers, including Party City Retail. And so we are vertically integrated, and so that allows us a footprint in the celebration business, both in product and insight and knowledge, to really go to market knowing more than anyone else about the celebration business. And so my team and I lead brand management and marketing. So that really encompasses reputation, product marketing. So it's kind of a combination of marketing and brand management. And maybe a little bit distinguished from a CPG that may have pillars. I stretch across into the sales teams. And so I'm helping Party City meet their sales plan. And then I'm also working with our CPG partners to help them be successful as well. And then just thinking about what we need to know about the shopper and consumer both today and tomorrow, and to longitudinally look at it and then set the company up for success while we transform our business. So no small mandate there.
So that's really interesting, extending beyond marketing and then all the way through the products you make. And that's a really interesting model. Have you done that before?
Well, my first introduction to it was at Kroger. Kroger was also vertically integrated. They owned 36 plants. They made everything from dog food, peanut butter, potato chips. And when I was in the private brand team, and when I entered, I didn't really understand that I was going to actually be in brand management. I thought I was going to be in design and marketing. I thought I was going to be thinking about branding and package design, because I did not come up through the CPG channels. I came up through the agency side. And so it was like an MBA in commercialization, like top to bottom, very complicated. The food business is the most complicated business I've ever worked in. And, Kroger crosses everything from, oh, I don't know, they're buying grass-fed cows in the middle of Iowa to, figuring out how to get enough peanuts for the peanut butter, and then taking them to market and then marketing them, like literally taking them to market.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think a lot of people don't know that the private brand is actually the biggest brand in most retailers across America now. And
Oh, it
so
absolutely
what an
is.
interesting
Yeah.
point of entry, and now bringing it full circle at Party City. So maybe tell us a bit about some of the top challenges that you face. You've been there, what, 3 years?
3 years.
Going on 3 years. So you've got, now you know where everything is. And so
Line of sight.
what are some of the biggest challenges, either specifically or maybe things that are broadly, like in the industry? We'd love to hear kind of both.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with people and talent, because you cannot transform a business without people with the right mindset. They are the bedrock of any brand or business transformation. And so we've worked hard to attract not just people with skill set who can deliver, but people who have the right mindset. I always call it head and heart. It's EQ and IQ. It's those who are really rooted in being agile and who don't just lean into change. I don't even want to say change management. It's like kind of a totally overused term, but we're looking for people who actually thrive on creating what doesn't exist. And so while you're transforming a business, you have to have the right people. And then it's really important to evaluate your existing team to understand, can those who are here, who bring incredible knowledge and I'll call it bench from the business as it got to where it was, to help everybody get there. So it isn't about changing your team out, it is about mindset, and then about finding others who can, you can kind of pepper into your teams. That is the first order of business in any brand transformation, while you're keeping the buses running on time. I guess the second piece of it is just go-to-market strategy. So all of you in the audience in marketing right now know that it's very, very difficult to create a repeatable outcome right now in marketing, both in demand. I don't care if you're in brand or demand marketing. It's very, very difficult. Media mix is almost impossible to get a handle on. First-party data is king or queen, and figuring out how to grow your business with what you have, with either a smaller pool of dollars or actually dollars that don't go as far. And so one of our first efforts at Party City, and for those of you in TV, forgive me, was to basically drain the TV budget to zero. And so we were spending about 70% of our budget on mass media, just in general. And not in a storytelling way, probably more in what I'm going to call like a hard marketing retail way. And that is a bold move for a management team to take the leap of faith in the board. Frankly, we're a publicly traded company. And to show the organization what happens when you turn the model upside down. When you take that money that you were investing in mass media and actually go bottom up, and you're really teaching the company to think about individual shopper drivers, the things that they're interested in, and then pulling it together in stories that matter, and then pulling people through right from what I call dreaming. I mean, we're in the memory making business. It's about parties and about how you're celebrating, right down into transaction. And so that, just that exercise of sometimes on a weekly basis moving our money around and trying to predict what's going to happen. I don't care if it's paid search, programmatic, it doesn't matter. Even in our social media channels or organic social, trying to pull everything together into a singular story, and it's not easy. That is probably the biggest weight on the marketing team right now, because you must deliver the sales plan. I mean,
and in retail, it's all about the weekly numbers, right?
Yes.
I mean, no one tracks numbers like retail. So tell me about that big pivot from mass to more digital and targeted. How did you convince them that was the way to go? Like that's a pretty bold decision to make. And I was curious, what data did you use to lead to that decision? And then what data have you used to prove or continue to Kaizen or improve that is the right way?
Well, the good or bad news was that the way we were spending our media was very difficult to measure. And so it was very difficult to actually look at our media mix and understand what the outcome is. Whether you're thinking about, I'll call it brand strength, right down into store traffic, e-com traffic, and demand. Some of it is measurable, but most of it was not. And so turning it upside down and tethering it to the channels and the customers, so segmentation, so I'll call it shopper segments, and then the stories that matter. We started with a small pilot, and then it exploded. And the weight of our business in Halloween, thanks for the socks, is extraordinary, both from a sales perspective in Party City as a retailer and our partners, but also the EBITDA that is driven because we make all of our costumes. So we design and manufacture all of our costumes. And so we had to get ready with our pilots to get into Halloween to be able to deliver. And so we had to have enough to convince the board that if you turn the model upside down, we will be able to deliver with more predictability and more care and concern for not throwing money at the wrong customers, meaning thinking about promotion in a different way, price and promo within a retail business.
So obviously with the recession, we've seen ad spending overall go down. It's still not back up to pre-pandemic levels. How do you, defend the spend? Like, what do you do to go in? Because people look at marketing and say, this is one of the easiest things to cut, one of the first things to go. How do you do that in the boardroom of a public company?
Well, I guess the good news versus the bad news is that now people are afraid to turn it off. Since we crossed that mountain and it was such a huge leap, and we were actually able to measure our results, both in owned, earned, and paid, it frightens the merchant team to actually start dialing it back. And so we model everything. We're not just modeling I'll call it the channel performance. We're actually modeling it right through to sales. And that's sales of multiple channels. Like we have a Rubik's Cube of sales channels that we're modeling. So B2B and B2C and B2B, B2C. I think that's the way to say it. So it's complicated, and you just have to model where it matters. And then there's just some things you're not going to be able to model. And there's always a leap of faith with the board team, and our, the CEO to say this is going to deliver what we think it is. And then just staying on top of what's happening with our competitors.
So really interesting. You're talking about all the different channels that you have to measure.
Oh my gosh, all of them.
You're in an interesting position, a very, very large physical footprint, but also online. Can you talk about the balance, integration, or separation of how you think about omni-channel these days?
Yep, when the management team arrived, we were fully bifurcated. The e-com team was out in Pleasanton. It ran as an individual business unit. It really was what I call the dumping ground for SKUs that did not sell in retail anywhere. And then we turned that upside down. And the e-com team, professionals, very, very talented team who had been in a lot of different retail, we basically gave them a different mandate. It's like you now have a sales mandate against the total business. And then the marketing mix work helped everyone understand how it's all tied together. So again, leap of faith in the beginning because you have to use your experience with other retailers. And thankfully, we have a management team with very, very deep retail roots and retail marketing roots. And so we've got good bench strength to tell other stories of how it's worked elsewhere. And then baking in and e-com makes it sound small because it's more than a sales channel. In some cases, your e-com site is also just like Amazon. It's like a search engine. And so, we're big enough that people are looking for things on our site, almost trying to figure out what they're looking for their party versus going to Amazon where there's just a bazillion things. And we tend to bring it together into an overall story. It's like princess party and, over 50. And that content piece of it has been one of the linchpins for us. We went from being product marketers to really storytellers that matter.
Yeah. Well, and parties and events. I mean, it makes sense, but you put that all together, and what a great opportunity. You said something that was really important, or I wanted to emphasize that. You mentioned that they were separated, and then you gave them one number.
One number.
And so I was at a dinner last night, a very large prestige retailer, and they actually have separated the .com business from their big Madison Avenue big stores. And I was surprised. They're actually separate companies that share the same brand name. And so tell me about, what did you notice? When you went to that new model, what was the biggest challenge you faced, but then what was the biggest benefit that you saw? Because I think there are a lot of people still kind of siloed in that approach, and maybe it will give people some conviction around your journey.
Well, the first order of business, of course, is the merchant team. We're a retailer, and so the marketers and the merchants had to look at the business differently to determine if there was upside. You went into it with a hypothesis based on our experience in other retailers, whether you're in fast moving, it doesn't matter whether you're in food or whether you're in specialty, there is certain consumer behavior and the linkage of, I'm going to call it journey, in the way that you browse and in the way that you buy. And so getting the merchant team on board with what could be, and then just really thinking about the e-com channel as an important sales channel to deliver our total plan. That doesn't mean we don't have a number for conversion and that we don't think about qualified traffic. You must, those are the various KPIs that you're going to live and die from, with if you're, in the e-com business, if you own the e-com number. But the way for our success, at least, was to think about it broadly, and then the merchandising organization looked at e-com as something they owned too. And that was the biggest linchpin for us. That is my biggest piece of advice for any retailer out there. It's like I always say, if you're in retail marketing, you go nowhere alone without the merchants. Like your merchant partners are your linchpin to success. And for us with e-com, it was helping teach everyone the importance and how the two work together. It's like, it isn't about selling things over here and then selling things over here. It is really about how they're knitted together and showing everyone that the journey through your channels is not a straight one. It's not linear.
It's really interesting you say that. And you're back in at Kroger, there, where merchants have driven retail for so long, you're seeing with the convergence of channels and the power of insights and marketing that even at Kroger, Stuart Aiken, right, now chief merchant and chief marketer.
Yes.
And I think it's a journey where he started at marketing at Safeway and is now the chief merchant of the largest grocer. And I think that's a good point of the importance of going with the merchant, with marketing, because they're together on a journey.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you.
I mean, our complexity is that PCHI sells to many, many retailers. And so I have to be in a boardroom with Safeway, and then I'm in the EVP, with the EVP team at Party City, and I have to think about the celebration category through a different lens. Like the insights that help us tell the story to Safeway and to use our celebration knowledge to be successful, you need to float the whole category boat. And it's really important to balance those things so that it isn't about who gets what. It literally is about the entire celebration category lifting right up.
That's an interesting challenge too, where you make the product that's sold in competing retailers, and so you compete on multiple levels. No small task. So would love to shift. You've talked about the importance of talent in your group. Would love to shift and talk about the consumer. We all know about inflation. We know what's going on in the world around us, which is a crazy time. But what are you seeing with consumers today, and what are some of their challenges, and how are you approaching segmentation and getting closer to consumers?
Yep. One of the first things we did when the new team arrived was to think about what I always call anthropological insight. So thinking about why people behave and then looking at your business so that you can tie the two together in a way that it's actionable, meaning I'm going to help uncover things that don't exist yet or that may just be starting, that we can actually tether to a business outcome. And analytics in our business, when we arrived, was really more about the numbers. It was about what was happening financially. And then the stand-up of I'm going to call it insights as a business driver for the total company, was mission critical to helping us actually overcome, I'm going to call it COVID. And so what was happening in the celebration business during COVID, we could have just, let's just put more balloons out there. But what we really did was dig underneath behavior to understand how are people behaving during COVID today, in what geography, in what demographic, in what sales segment, and then helping us understand where to point our marketing so we could be more successful. That's just one example. And then, of course, all of you, I'm sure, are dealing with what I call the tale of two shoppers or customers. You have demographically challenged families in the United States who are worried about making their bills every month. And then you have another set of customers who can make their bills every month and have money in the bank. But the thing that they share right now is just worry and concern about the future. And so our advice back to the organization was you can think about those two consumers, shoppers differently, but at the end of the day, the thing that ties them together is lack of confidence. And so we had to think about messaging and programming and content, and then really think about marketing channels to talk to each of those and then figure out where to point your marketing. There are certain shoppers right now that are just simply not going to transact everywhere. Now, I want to be careful with that because Halloween is a must celebrate I'll call it a must-celebrate moment for every family. It doesn't matter what your demographic is. And so what we're seeing, interestingly, in our business is families who really clamp down on spending are spending during Halloween. And what we hear anecdotally from them is that it's a must-spend moment for their kids. It's just they're going to spend differently, and they're thinking about it differently. But those are the types of insights and actionable outcomes that we bring to the company to help us make better business decisions, and then really tethering it to what happened and then going back in the loop. I call it the iterative loop of what we thought hypothetically, what we validated, what we did and what happened, and then going back at it over and over again, so that, like any good retailer, we can create a more repeatable outcome, because that's the name of the game in retail.
So you're talking about the repeatable outcomes and getting that. If you could wave a magic wand and make certain things appear to help you do your job, I think a lot of people are out there, there are different service providers, agencies in the world, but more so from your standpoint as a consumer of media, technology, and services, what are the things that you really are looking for? Let's talk in terms of solving problems, but are there things out there like, I really need a solution for this or that, where you're just really struggling that the community is not bringing you the tools that you need to succeed in the way that you'd love to?
Well, like any historical retailer, we have a lot of historical technology, I'll just call it that. And so we're in the middle of band-aiding and building at the same time. I'll just say it that way. And so our partners across our business, like Salesforce as an example, excellent partner. What makes them a great partner is that they understand that we're building and running at the same time. And so those are the types of partners that we look for in our business that can help us tether together what we have. And we've got the longitudinal view, like the things that we need to run our business more effectively. I mean, as a marketer, I want to tie it all up so that I can have the enterprise-like dashboard for the company. That's the dream, I call it. But until we get there, we have to glue and paperclip things that exist and then build what we know we need to be successful. It's more automation and more knowledge faster. That's really what we're after in our business. We have an amazing IT tech team within Party City. Our chief technology officer is brilliant. And so her special, I call it her secret sauce, or her, kind of her superwoman idea, is that she does see around corners and she understands how to architect, again, what doesn't exist. It's just another demonstration that if you're going to transform a business, you need to think about people who can see what doesn't exist and who can help you get there.
So that sounds great. What other words of wisdom, like if you were to describe those partners, those who understand that you've got to be operating the business while you're innovating, any other pieces of advice of when partners come to the table, the things that distinguish themselves, that earn a spot in your circle, saying, okay, I'm gonna talk to you. You're gonna be in my team.
Anyone who has retail urgency, and I know it sounds very basic, but we have a number of partners, even agencies sometimes, coming to the table with like a wait and see mentality versus what I call the retail mentality, which is, try it, see what happens, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. I call it analysis paralysis to be perfect. And of course, perfect in a retail business is an enemy of success. And so those partners who have that kind of urgency, and I don't mean ready, fire, aim, although I'm okay with ready, fire, aim sometimes, like rolling the dice. But those who really understand the urgency that our business is in versus the, being slower about thinking about change and about making action happen. Like too much talking, not enough action.
Well, that speaks of several themes that you brought earlier, like about talent, the people who actually, it's not just getting people, it's getting the right people with the right mindset. It's about your transformation, and it's about your finding the potential in something. So those all come together around having a partner who has that same vision and urgency to make it happen.
Yeah, all agencies cannot deal with that. Big or small, size doesn't really matter. It is mindset, and then getting the right players within your agency partners. I call it the portfolio. We have a portfolio of talent. Our portfolio includes our internal team, and then the way that they are symbiotic twins, or the way that they integrate with their external partners. And we look at that ecosystem very, very carefully to understand who engages with whom, and I'll just say tenor and personality, it's mission critical because it has to work like a machine. Yep. It's like our agencies work as integrated partners with our business, within our business. And so that's the model we run to go faster. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. And so speaking of talent, and we have a lot of talent in this room, and people at all different parts of their careers, I'd love to shift a little bit now to get the wisdom about individuals and their careers and their future. So I'd love to maybe, it's a two-part question. The first would be can you share with us a pivotal moment of your career, and maybe it was a shining success, or maybe it was a little bit of a dumpster fire that you were in, and how did that shape your career? I think just a real life example of something that you would say was really, maybe you didn't have a dumpster fire. I certainly had dumpster fires in my career.
So many dumpster fires.
I just think it keeps it real to know, hey, you get to this amazing spot, but it wasn't this easy linear path.
Oh no. I guess what I would say is failure is actually part of being successful, certainly in transformational businesses. Mm-hmm. And so being more fearless about not failing and setting yourself up to, and then what? I always call it plan B. It's like I run plan A, but I got a plan B sitting right behind it just in case, because you sort of know if it bombs, you have to have what is your next thing? And so just thinking about setting yourself up to be bold and to take risks that are calculated, but that, are going to shake things up. You can't just go into a boardroom and say, hi, I'm going to turn off TV. I hope you're comfortable with that, because it will frighten the hell out of everyone. And so you have to be careful about the story you then tell against it. That is the kind of the two-part answer. Make bold moves, but have your facts straight and understand that you need to have a couple of different options. And that's the way that I've seen success happen in boardrooms with EVPs and CEOs who are looking for what I call repeatable outcomes, just over and over again. Yeah. And
I love it. So be bolder.
Be bolder.
In doing that.
That's right. Be bolder. And then when it doesn't work and you get a dumpster fire, all right, let me think of a good dumpster fire. Oh, okay, good dumpster fire.
That didn't take long. That was good.
I don't know. I'll give you a dumpster. So I moved from Canada to the United States to take this job with Kroger. My husband's a Canadian. I was born in Detroit. And I'm looking at the portfolio and I'm like, wait a minute. Where is the organic natural brand? What's happening here? Why don't we have it? And it seems like an easy fix, and this is going to go back 12 years or 14 years, so it's a little while ago. But I prepared the entire size the price, just like good brand management protocol. We've got the category growth and all of it, and this is within my first, call it 4 months at Kroger, and I got in front of the chief merchant, who was a bit of a pill. He was Don Becker. I mean, he was tough.
I knew Don. Yeah.
He didn't put up with anything, and I remember I'm looking at all my stuff and I feel like I've got the story and I've got the upside and I've got all the stuff. And the first words out of his mouth, and it literally was like, well, how are you going to execute this thing, Susan? It's not executable. You got to execute this across 28 different divisions. You got to sell this through to 28 different division presidents. Well, I hadn't even contemplated the push through of what I thought was just a flaming hot business idea, which, by the way, we did end up executing eventually. But I hadn't contemplated how to actually push it into reality. It was my first MBA moment in a retailer where I understood that strategy without what I'm going to call executional knowledge is completely useless. And it is the fastest way to degrade your credibility. So that's my dumpster fire. And so we said, back to the drawing board. He's like, yep, go back to the drawing board. You come back and see me when you understand how to execute. I'm like, okay, tail between my legs. We did end up executing, and it's Simple Truth, which is now, I think, a $3 billion brand. That was about $1 billion incremental to their top line. It was a very complicated brand to stand up because of the supply chain and all the requirements of it. But we did eventually get the company behind it. But I thought I had a slam dunk. It's like, oh my gosh, think again.
Yeah, I'm hearing some themes from you about repeatable results, execution, speed of retail, accountability. That's great. Final, any final words of wisdom to the people in the room, or maybe to your younger self? What would you say, a word of wisdom to all of these great people who are here listening to you today?
Well, I already talked about the be bolder part, and to take risks and to not be afraid. I would tell my younger self to have a greater belief in my system of mentors. I only got here with the people who helped pull me up, literally, when maybe I didn't even see it myself. And so having confidence in your system and then really going back after the people who you then want to help do the same thing. I call it the pay it forward idea. And then it is be true to who you are. I'm a trained graphic designer and creative director. I am not a trained marketer. And so to a certain degree, I wear a number of hats, and it didn't dawn on me until really late in my career to stop hiding my creativity. You have to actually lean into who you are. And once I really leaned into that and just said, this is, hey, hire me or not, but this is who I am, that's when things really took off for me. And so that's what I would say, like, lean into who you are and do not be afraid to not fit the current profile of what you think you want. Because it worked for me. I'm not an MBA. I'm a marketer now.
I love it. What a great message for us all. So please join me in thanking Susan.